I went through a town that doesn't exist, so I'm not really sure where or what thread this should go in. So I figured I could try here and see what y'all say. For some context, I'm a 25 male, and this happened when I was about 13. Yes, it's been a long time since it happened, but my family and I still talk about it to this day, as it involved all of us. And while we still talk about it, I unfortunately have a hard time remembering the exact dates and some parts of it due to some head trauma. So that means some of the finer details I can't remember at this moment. But I know this happened sometime during the year 2012. I think it happened on our way from Washington to Oklahoma. We had made this trip several times, but I cannot remember if it was on our way to Washington or from Washington that year. But basically, we had been on the road all day. It was night, the sun had already set, and everyone was tired. We had 2 cars to fit everyone. Me, my sister, and my mom rode in the SUV, while my brother and his girlfriend at the time, now wife, rode in the small 4-door car. We had been on a long stretch of road surrounded by pine trees on both sides. The GPS said we wouldn't reach another town for a good few miles, but there were lights just down the road. We thought maybe the GPS needed to be updated or something because small towns tend not to show up on these at the time. I don't remember the name of the brand we had, but you stuck it to the car window, plugged it into your car, entered the address, and pick your route. We usually took the same routes every time depending on the time of the year. Now, I don't remember which route we took. It could have been during the summer fall, but I could be wrong. But we knew the routes by this point, and we didn't expect this town. We came closer, and my brother called my mom, and the conversation went something along the lines of saying he was getting tired and his girlfriend was already asleep, so she couldn't drive. My mom agreed that she may be too tired for once and needed to pull over to find a hotel in this town. He said alright, and he slowed to get behind us so he could follow us to pull over. At this point, everything seemed fine and nothing was out of the ordinary. It wasn't until we passed the sign with the name of the town on it that my gut twisted. I remember watching as we neared the town, and there was just an inkling of a feeling that I didn't understand yet. Everything seemed fine, but I kept watching my surroundings as we drove. The lights had a sickly yellow or orange hue to them. I remember looking at the sign as we passed, but I can't remember the name of the town. And the funny thing, no one can. No one had been able to. Yet we wrote it down that night and the day after, so we don't come through it again. Anyway, we passed the sign and my gut just dropped. At the time, I didn't understand what I was feeling was anxiety. I just remember thinking we're being watched, but looking around there was no one. While yes, it was in the middle of the night, so people were probably asleep. There were no cars, buildings were empty, and the air itself was stagnant. As we drove through it, now I know, kid me had a very active imagination, but my older brother can confirm the town was empty. In a way, it scared even him. We saw a church sitting on a small hill just to the right side of the town, and we drove up to it. We parked near the door, as it was the only light in the gravel parking lot. Also, this was the only light that was white and didn't have a sick hue to it. We all stepped out of the cars to stretch our legs and find a hotel. My mom told me and my sister, who was about 9 or 10 at the time, to stay close, slipping in the fact that she has this creepy feeling as well. At the time, I dismissed the small statement and just walked around the car to move my legs. Then something moved behind the big dumpster that's across the parking lot. The light on the door didn't reach all the way out to the dumpster. I could barely see its outline, enough to know what it even was. But something scattered along the gravel as if darting behind it. My mom hears this and orders me and my sister to get into the car. I stood staring for a moment before walking backwards to the car. For whatever reason, I didn't feel like turning my back to it. We waited in the car as my brother had his girlfriend get in the car and walked my mom to the SUV and helped her put the address in for the GPS. Once it was set, we got in the car and we drove off. I couldn't get myself to look back at the dumpster as we drove off. We drove through the town and again, everything seems eerily empty and clean. There was no litter, no trash, nothing that suggested life besides the street lights that were on. We head to the edge of the town, following the GPS, and turns onto this gravel road that led down into a giant open surrounded by thick, dense woods. In said lot was the motel, and I don't mean fancy hotel. Motels now. No, this was a two-story, L-shaped building with about 30 to 40 rooms, and check-in was a separate small building just to the side of the hotel rooms. It only had one light in the parking lot beside the small ones above the doors. This light was a hollow white. We pulled in and my mom called my brother and said to stay in the car, that she was going to go talk to whoever was inside. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. The building was small, but the windows were big. We could see inside enough to watch our mother go in and talk to the guy at the counter. But here's the thing, me, my sister, and my brother all saw different things. When our mother went in, I saw her talking to an old man who had a thin, frail stretcher and a permanent scowl. He seemed old and weary and miserable. His eyes were slightly sunken in, his skin slightly pale and hanging slightly. My sister says she saw a young man who seemed nervous and annoyed, dark hair and deep eyes. My brother says he saw a middle-aged man who was aloof and uncaring. He had a beard and dark hair. I can't remember all the details they gave me, but I knew the main differences. When our mother came out, she got in the car and waved for my brother to follow. We parked in front of our rooms. She had gotten two side by side. We were told to only bring in the essentials for the night because she doesn't want to stay any longer than necessary, and we were leaving in the morning. We all agreed and grabbed as little as we needed and headed into our rooms. My sister, my mother, and I stayed in the same room to the right, while my brother and his girlfriend stayed in the left room. My sister had asked to take a shower, and of course our mother went to help get it ready, as my sister wasn't sure how this one worked. Well, it turns out it didn't. The water wouldn't turn on, so she called my brother and explains, and of course he comes to get her so she can shower in theirs. While they go do that, my mom looks at the beds, realizing I'm staring at them, and she goes, "You don't want to touch them either, do you?" And hearing I wasn't alone in this feeling, I smiled and shook my head. I said it feels gross, and she said it does. She went to check the beds when my brother came running back to our room. He opened the door frantically, and of course it startled us. He said to pack my things and ask my mom to come here. She nodded and followed and began putting stuff back in my bag. My sister came back over and she looked freaked out. I remember offering to help her pack and asking what happened, and at first she had a hard time trying to say it, but finally got it out that there was a blood in the shower when they went in. She freaked out and had Caleb check it, and he came to get our mother. She came back and calmly said to put our things back in the trunk and get in. At that point, it really hit how bad this place felt. I began to panic and hurried to put our stuff in the car. We got in and my brother nor my mom wasted time driving away, not even stopping to get a refund for not staying or telling them about the blood. We turned to continue going through the town onto the one we knew about. Unfortunately, my brother needed gas. Luckily, as we get to the edge of the town, like the rest of it is in our rear view mirror, there was a gas station. But again, no cars, not even an employee car. My brother pulls to the pump and my mom pulls to the one next to it. So we're all together still. We all jump out and go inside after my brother pumps his gas. At this point, we're all awake, so we grab a drink and a snack and pay for gas. That goes fine until we go back outside. We're all heading back to the cars. My brother's girlfriend was in the car already and I was walking next to him. I don't remember what we were talking about, but we were laughing some to kinda ease the tension. Well, I'm standing next to him as he's putting the thing back to the pump and something moves across the parking lot. Both of our heads shoot up and we're staring at a shed in the back corner and tall, intimidating trees behind it. All of a sudden, two figures dart and run behind the shed. My brother slowly closes his tank without taking his eyes off of the shed, and he says to go get in the car. As soon as he says it, three pairs of glowing yellow amber eyes are staring back at us from beside the shed, yet taller than it. My brother yells for us to get in the car and leave. He books to the front seat of his car as I jumped in our truck, and he speeds off, my mom following after him. My mom is asking what happened because she didn't see that part, but luckily my sister had seen it. Also, we began telling her what happened, and she called my brother. He told her the same thing, and she said that we'll never come through here again. After this, we drove to the next town and found a Holiday Inn and went there. We spent the next hour, I think, just kind of talking about what happened until we all were calm enough to sleep. The next day, I remember us trying to look up the town we had gone through the night before, but we couldn't couldn't find anything. We thought maybe it just wasn't a well-known town. So we got older maps and even asked people that worked there about the town a few miles away, and no one knew anything about it. Even said there wasn't a town that way for miles. Since then, it's had us all dumbfounded about it. Now, there's no point in trying to find it when we can't remember the name of it, but it's still a deep-rooted enough memory that we all talk about it. It's not often, but it's like something we can't forget no matter how hard we try.